Hey there, welcome back to Tips Over Tea. I am Nicole, your host. I'm excited to introduce you today to renjones. We are going to talk about the top 3 wellness tips for women. This ought to be exciting because I don't often get to talk with men specifically about wellness tips for women. So go ahead and grab your tea, grab a friend, and listen in. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Tips Over Tea. I'm excited to introduce you to Ren. Ren's got a whole bunch of alphabets behind his name. He knows fitness, nutrition, all of that thing, and he specializes in working with women. Yeah?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to be here. As you know, I'm generally excited, but I am excited to be here. You know, and it's been a while since we've got an opportunity to speak. At one
Yeah.
point, we were co-hosting, moderating rooms in Clubhouse on a daily basis, and then the schedule changed,
Hmm.
and it's probably been several weeks, if not months, since the last time we got an opportunity to communicate. So this is exciting for me
Yeah, me too.
to come on the show, and this will be cemented in on video and audio for us to revisit in perpetuity, as they say. So I'm excited to be here, and I know we're gonna have a great discussion. Thanks for
Yeah.
having me.
Yeah, thank you. Always. You always bring a lot of wealth. Oh, you know what I'm saying. A
I
wealth of
understand.
knowledge
Yeah, I
to the
understand.
table. And what I really appreciate is hearing about a women's health from a man's perspective. That it's not common that we can have discussions like that. So today we're going to talk about the top 3 wellness tips for women.
Mhm.
So I'm excited to get started. What would you say tip number 1 would be?
I'm gonna go right in for stress, right?
Mhm.
One thing that can be a bit more complex for women uh, than it is for men is the sort of multi-layered stress indicators that women, and I typically work with women over 30 years old,
Mhm.
not exclusively, but in that life there affecting there's a lot of the times the women that I work with may be at the waning part of their reproductive years, maybe.
Mhm.
They may be in a situation where they have an ailing and or
Mhm.
aging parent, right?
Mhm.
They may be in a situation where they have teenage and or college age children, both
Mhm.
of which present a different type of stress, right? They're
Yeah.
probably at an age career wise where they have the most responsibility that they've ever had in a corporate setting, or have decided to branch out into entrepreneurship after becoming disgusted,
Mhm.
with the corporate life. Um, and all those things add a lot of stress. And so tip number one from my perspective and what I've dealt with the demographic is sort of trying to minimize the stress of exercise and the stress of nutrition, because they don't really it's not helpful when you're already dealing with a lot of stressors to
Mhm.
take something that should be positive and instrumental in improving your wellness and bite down on it
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
like a brick, right?
Yeah.
It's not a good way to go. So oftentimes what I see brilliant, dedicated, purpose driven women who will add 5 or 6 days a week of exercise to their plate,
Mhm.
who will add a hyper restrictive nutritional practice
Mhm.
onto their plate, and they will allow themselves to get rooted in a lot of judgment, a lot of self
Mhm.
criticism as they're trying to make this journey. So a few things that I want to do right away. Number one, sort of establish a minimum effective dose of exercise, right? And for the ladies out there listening, you type A ladies who are go getters, you earn it, you deserve it, you're worth it, you don't have to be in that gym 5 or 6 days a week if you're efficient at what your methodology is exercise wise. There is such a thing as
Mhm.
a minimum effective dose. usually that's about a 3 day a week sweet spot for strength training, at least. You can add some cardiovascular condition in there, but exercise is stress. And heaping that stress on top of the stress that you're dealing with every day, all day, it compromises your ability to get results from your workout. The second thing with those nutritional practices, Nikki, there's something called cognitive dietary restraint. And it's a psychological phenomenon, sort of described as your thought process in terms of your nutritional choices, and that thought process only being concentrated on how the nutritional choice will affect my body aesthetically, right? You're constantly thinking about, if I eat this, will I gain weight? If I eat this, will I lose weight? If I eat this, will I gain weight some points and lose weight at other points? That is also a stressor. And the research shows that women engaged in sort of cognitive dietary restraint, again, it's just the thought about your eating. And this is not an actual active thing, just what your brain is processing in regards to your eating. We know that can cause loss of hair because of extended cortisol release. It can cause things like sleeplessness, and even reduction of bone density, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah.
But you stressing out over your nutrition can cause you to reduce bone density. Like that's a big deal. And then generally speaking, sort of my philosophy, and you know this about me, Nikki, because we've had a lot of conversations about it. My philosophy is much more so grace over discipline for the women that I'm working with. Applying some grace along your journey is probably going to keep you involved much longer in your own journey than any sort of fictitious levels of self-discipline where you're going to make yourself do things and be hypercritical and judgmental of yourself about the things that you're doing. So number one for me, the number one tip is, ladies, how can we manage stress, or at the very least not add more stress to your life through what we think is an effective exercise and nutrition process? So minimizing stress is number one for me, Nikki.
There's so many studies out there about the effects of stress. I don't know that I've ever heard anybody say, from that perspective, that point of view, don't add more stress with the stuff that you're trying to use to help you relieve stress.
Right.
So that's a great perspective, and something for you all to think about, something for me to think about. Well, I'm good. Me and exercise.
Right.
I dance.
And that's fine. That's fine.
Yes. But so that is a great perspective. And the power of thought, like that is definitely something I talk a lot about. But putting in the perspective of hair loss, bone density loss, and what was the third one that you said?
Sleeplessness. And inability to process body fat, if that's your goal, and it doesn't have to be. But stress is going to compromise that a lot too.
Yes, it does. It does. And it's all about what you're, not all about, but a big part of that is how you're perceiving what you're eating. And that is something you can control a lot easier than your body's response to other things. So I love it. I love it. What's tip number 2?
Yeah, tip number 2 is it's all around something that you may not have heard, or for the folks that are listening, may not be something that you're immediately familiar with, but sort of not romanticizing an avatar, right? Breaking up with an avatar, or allowing the avatar to change. What I mean by avatar is the version of yourself in your head, right? Whenever you have sort of on social media, you'll have an avatar. It'll be your picture, et cetera, et cetera. We all know from iPhones and even Android phones now. I'm team Android, by the way.
I am too.
All right. No hate from the i community out there. But the iPhone community in particular, they know you have this little thing. You can create an avatar. You can use it on social media. It's a little picture of you, whatever. But we develop these avatars as people that can be really fixated around certain points in our life when we feel like maybe we had things together financially, or we had things together relationship wise, or in our case as wellness professionals, mentally and or physically. these folks were in a zone,
Mhm.
and because we're unwilling to let go of that previous version
Mhm.
and construct a productive methodology that works with the current version of us, we get stuck in a place where we're doing things that just don't serve us right now.
Mhm.
A lot of the ladies that I've had the opportunity to work with, and you may be familiar with this also, Nikki, they may have things in the back of that closet, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes I hear people call it a gold dress or a gold jeans, a
Oh.
pair of jeans. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um,
I think I have a pair actually.
Right, right, right. I'm going to get back into this garment,
Yeah.
right? And that's a key indication. That's a real time, real world application of a
Mhm.
sort of romanticizing that avatar. A lot of the work that I do is trying to break up that avatar because we look at that previous version of ourselves the
Mhm.
same way we do when we lose a person in our lives. We mourn that previous version,
Yeah.
and all of these stages of grief that we talk about, including but not limited to the anger and the denial and the bargaining and the acceptance. We run through those things as humans when we change and shift the
Mhm.
course and sort of tone of our existence. So one thing that can be challenging, particularly for women, as I'm working with women through reproductive states, right? Like
Mhm.
some of the women that I have are still in their reproductive years, right? Some of the women that I have are perimenopausal. Some of the
Mhm.
women that I work with are postmenopausal.
Mhm.
And even in that sense, right? The things that worked for you at one point in your life, we
Mhm.
can't get so fixated on them and romanticize them. We end up banging our head against the wall. Well,
Mhm.
this used to work.
Mhm.
I remember back when I was 25,
Mhm.
I would just work out an extra day, and
Mhm.
and that would solve all the problems. So allowing yourself the mourning process if you need it, mourning process if you need it,
Mhm.
of being able to accept the loss of that previous version and
Mhm.
step into what's actionable, doable, and what fits into the current situation of your life. You
Yeah.
may not have an hour anymore that you can just go to the gym. Maybe it's 20 minutes for you now. You may not have the ability to eat certain things and only certain things. Children now who
Mhm.
make it difficult to eat a physically be able to eat the way that you choose to. And I love. I've got a good friend. Her name is Dr.
Mhm.
Somi Igbene, and she's a registered dietitian, nutritionist, and she talks a lot about um, things like veganism,
Mhm.
and things like being a ketogenic eater, and how to the extent that you can, sometimes we need to allow ourselves to be able to shift and
Yeah.
flow with what our body and our circumstances require in certain situations. I never want to indicate to people who are respecting the planet and respecting animals that they need to start consuming animal products. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
However, sometimes when we're very dogmatic about who we are,
Mhm.
um, we're not opening the door for any allowance of the shifting that happens as just being a light bearing being on
Mhm.
the planet, right?
Mhm.
Things are going to shift. So number two, even though it's not a hardcore exercise or nutrition thing, is sort of being okay with releasing the stronghold that a previous version of you has on your decision making process. I hope that makes sense the way I explained it, Nikki.
It
That was
does.
a little bit out there on that.
It's okay. What I gather to summarize all of that is accepting who you are, where you are right now, and working from that point.
That's it. Being present. You,
Mhm.
you gotta. You have to be where you are.
Yeah.
Um, Nothing good happens from acting in a distracted place where the past is sort of calling you, or thinking in a futuristic place,
Mhm.
because you never get there. You
Mhm.
you you only ever get to the next present. You never get to the future.
Yeah.
So that means you're compromising your time every single second of your life by wanting to act in a space that you can never exist in. So yeah, you gotta let go of that avatar, man. I know that's a little out there for some of the ladies listening, perhaps, but
Hmm.
it'll serve you. I promise. I promise it'll
Yeah.
serve you.
Yeah. Create a now avatar.
Create a now. Oh, I like that. I'm gonna take that. Yeah, create a now avatar. That's what I was trying to say the whole time. Create a now avatar. Man, that's very good. I like that. Very simple
Awesome.
and easy to explain. Thank you for that.
I've been working on brevity.
All right, I'm gonna put that one in my pocket. That's mine now.
By all means.
That's good. Hey, I appreciate that. I didn't know there'd be free gifts on the show. So put that in my mental swag bag. That's awesome.
I love that mental swag bag.
My
I
mental
guess we're
swag bag.
swapping gifts.
That's right, right. You do gifts for the guests. I love
Yeah.
that. Create a now avatar. Ooh.
Yeah.
That's like saying Mufasa. Ooh. Say it again, Mufasa. Ooh. Nikki knows I'm crazy. So for
Yeah.
those out there listening that are just getting introduced to me, I'm more like this than I am what I just said. Trust me. It's much more of this from me. I'm trying to keep it together because Nikki's got a nice show here.
But you know what? When I would go to the gym, I work out at home because I'm just not a gym person. But when I used to go to the gym and when I would work out with my boyfriend, I would always make jokes and make it fun. They're like, "Stop doing that!" But I'm like,
it's gotta be
I
fun,
gotta
man.
laugh.
It's gotta be fun. It's got to
Yeah.
be fun.
Yeah.
That's my philosophy too. I love that. I love that.
Mhm. Mhm.
But that's tip number 2 from me.
Awesome. I love it. So, if anyone's tuning in a little late, tip number 1 was really manage your stress. One, by not adding more stress with the way you have your exercise and routine mapped out, so to speak. Like, don't
Mhm.
have a tight grip on it. 2 hands on the wheel, like when you first started driving. And
Right.
and tip number 2 is create a now avatar.
Yes. Simply put, create a now avatar.
Yes, accept who you are, where you are, and move from there. Awesome. So, tip number 3, what would that be?
And tip number 3 is probably something that most of the listeners have heard from other coaches or if you follow any fitness people on social media. And that's, ladies, please, please, to the extent that you're able to, uh, and within the realm of how your day is laid out, embrace some strength training, please. You know, sort of historically and culturally,
Mhm.
people in the diaspora, right? The African diaspora, we're descendants of strong people. Some of that was forced on us, obviously.
Mhm.
We were used as beasts of burden.
Mhm.
To long story short, that's the reality of our existence again throughout the planet as we've been dispersed by transatlantic slave trade.
Mhm.
Now, there's not much good about that. One thing that we do know, particularly for our culture, and I want to speak on this from a cultural perspective, even though I know you have a broad base of audience, because it's not something that I often get an opportunity to do.
Yeah.
The reality is that our procreation was controlled,
Mhm.
in our lineage, and that's just what it is. I don't mean this to offend anybody, to be accusatory in any way,
Mhm.
but there are a certain set of physical gifts that we have as a culture and community because, quite frankly, it was controlled that the strongest physically among us were allowed to procreate. I
Mhm.
mean, that's just what it is.
Yeah.
Because of that, and in addition to just normal science, but because of that, we respond really very well to strength training,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
We have been conditioned to grow muscle tissue, to increase strength, to process body fat, if that's a goal of yours. It doesn't have to be.
Mhm.
Um, just through genealogy, just
Mhm.
through the genetic makeup of who was allowed to procreate for some 300 plus years,
Mhm.
16, 19 forward, right?
Mhm.
To now. So women in general are going to get great benefit from strength training. And I'll run down some of the science there. But, women in our culture, descendants of that sort of, members of that African diaspora, and to a certain extent, all BIPOC communities really have a tremendous response to strength training. So I'll run down quickly some benefits for women specifically, but I just wanted to mention that because
Yeah.
I feel like this is an appropriate place with an appropriate audience to
Yeah.
mention that. Man, you've got so much physical prowess in your genealogy
Mm-hmm.
that it's a shame to let it go untapped.
Mm-hmm.
But back to the normalcy. Number one, bone density.
Yep.
Ladies, if you're strength training, you're able to much more effectively stave off osteoporosis.
Mm-hmm.
My mother used to joke, when she was alive, God rest her soul,
Mm-hmm.
um, that the older she got, the clumsier she got and more brittle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Strength training and that clumsiness can improve power. We think about power oftentimes as explosiveness, right?
Mm-hmm.
But power is also deceleration. And what I mean by that is stopping you from tipping over.
Yeah.
When you lose your balance, power is you not falling because you're able to brace your body. You have the musculature to stop yourself from tipping over. If you
Mm-hmm.
trip over a curb or if you slide into a Lego, ladies, on your floor, right? You really ensure that you don't fall when you have a little bit more physical prowess, when you're stronger, when you have greater power. Power accelerates, but it also decelerates. But to that end, osteoporosis, staving that off, we know that putting stress on the muscle puts stress on the bone
Mm-hmm.
and allows the bone to sort of recycle its own density. There
Mm-hmm.
was a time when we thought that we could only stave that off. If you've lost some bone tissue, the best thing you could do was preserve it. But
Mm.
recent research is telling us that you can regrow it. So you can
Nice.
actually come back from osteoporosis. That's a big one.
Yeah.
The second big thing for women that I consider in terms of strength training is just elegant posture, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Posture is so. I'm a man on a podcast talking to a woman about women's issues, and I don't want to say this in a chauvinistic way. I'll say
Yeah.
generally, posture is powerful, right?
Yeah.
I
It
will
is.
say what I was originally going to say, but posture is powerful.
Yeah.
When your head is tall, when your back is straight, you can
Mm-hmm.
do things in life that are in line with that type of physical presence.
Mm-hmm.
So allowing yourself to maintain your postural control, we talk about in terms of physicality and kinesiology, you need to make sure your muscles stay strong for that. The,
Mm-hmm.
the next thing, and there's a laundry list here, and I'm going to try not to talk too long about it, but I want to make a strong case for strength training here.
Yeah.
The,
Yeah.
the next thing is something called sarcopenia. And sarcopenia is just natural muscle loss.
Yeah.
Usually after 30 or maybe 35, anywhere from 5 to 10% muscle loss can be very, very common over time. So,
Mm-hmm.
so that means that you're losing control of your body over time. The muscle is what moves the skeleton around.
Mm-hmm.
A great percentage of our families who may be in extended nursing care facilities,
Mm-hmm.
they're there simply because they can't do a squat down to a toilet and press their weight into the floor to get off of the toilet. Um, that's really sad and very avoidable.
Yeah.
Through strength training. So staving off that sarcopenia, the loss of muscle, and the last thing that I'll mention is just your metabolic output, your body's ability to burn calories.
Mm-hmm.
It's extremely helpful once you get into a perimenopausal and postmenopausal state
Mm-hmm.
because the metabolism has a tendency to slow a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit more difficult to process body fat. Again, if that's your goal,
Mm-hmm.
your key reason for strength training does not have to be to shrink your body in any way.
Mm-hmm.
I want to make that clear.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you have the ability to not wrestle so aggressively with a circumstance by nature of just strength training a little bit, that's a great way to do it. And then the final thing is your mental acuity and capacity,
Mm-hmm.
right? Research has told us over and over and over again that people that strength train, women included, obviously, they just have a higher level of mental acuity. They're
Yeah.
able to stave off things like early onset Alzheimer's, dementia, things like that. A good wellness program is really great for that. It helps to ensure that you get good sleep.
Mhm.
So you don't have to be concerned with bulking up. I know that can be a concern,
Yeah.
particularly in our community, Nikki. That's something that can be challenging for the women in our community to accept,
Mhm.
because we have so much miscommunication about strength training.
Yeah.
Um, but you don't have the hormonal profile to bulk up.
Yeah.
If it were that easy, ladies, every man that you know would look like Thor from the Avengers, right? I've been training since I was 15. I'm 47 now. It hasn't magically bulked me up over that time. So strength training. That's my third tip for
Mhm.
women. Really prioritizing strength training, and again, I I hope I spoke with some level of coherence and in a way that made sense.
You
But
did.
that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
I love it. As you were sharing, especially about like when you trip up over a curve or anything like that, like the fact that we don't fall and at this age, like we take it for granted. Like that's natural. Of course you aren't gonna fall. But you never I really hadn't thought about like, well, I always say I'm gonna be living to be 150. So
Absolutely.
I've got to strength train because it's unfortunate, but a lot of the stats say that if a woman, well, I don't know if it's a woman and man, but if you break a hip and you go into the hospital, that's usually like from after that, it's a slow road downhill, and they
That's
don't
it.
make it back. Um,
Just can't
and
recover.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I remember watching a documentary, and it's not about strength training, but it's something that it dawned on me. It was a young lady who had anorexia and an eating disorder, and what was about to kill her was not that she wasn't eating, is that your heart's a muscle, right? And if you're not doing strength training to strengthen it or keep it going, like it's like, I got nothing. What you want me to do?
Right.
So just even that right there is I never thought about that.
Absolutely.
So
And you don't have to go. We hear strength training and we think, oh, big weights,
weights, yeah,
gym,
right.
men ogling me. When I say strength training, I'm really talking about using your muscles to resist the force of gravity.
Mhm,
That could be standing up and sitting down 10 times while you're watching something on your couch. That's
mhm,
good strength training for your lower body. That
mhm,
could be doing a push up against the wall where you're
mhm.
just leaning. Push up on the, it could be plank. All of
Yeah,
those things muscles have to resist gravity. Absolutely fine. It does not have to involve a gym. It doesn't, and perhaps it's best that you don't early on in the process, but it doesn't have to involve weights or machines.
mhm,
It's really a matter of you using those muscles to resist gravity in some
mhm.
form or fashion, and doing that with some frequency.
Yeah,
And that frequency could be twice a week. Twice
yeah,
a week for a year is going to do you so much more good than 5 times a week for 2 months,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
The frequency and consistency are typically the road to improved health. So you can think about strength training the same way, because I know when you mention it, a lot of times the connotation that arrives
mhm,
is, oh, I've got to go to a gym and get a membership,
yeah.
and I'm going to feel awkward, and the men in there are pigs, and I understand, ladies, they are. Um, you know, but you don't feel limited by that. I felt called to
Yeah,
interject that
yeah,
as you brought it up.
yep. I can appreciate that. Um, and something else just came to mind as you were sharing that too.
No telling. I'll start to ramble so that my annoying voice will bring it back to you. It might trigger you to remember what you were about to say. I can ramble forever, by the way. Uh,
I
Ramble
don't
all
call
day.
it rambling, you're sharing stuff.
Yeah, that's
So,
right. That's what I'm doing. Thank you for that. What a
yes.
gentle reframe. I need that. Um, yeah, yeah, but that strength training, man, it's such a key, it's such an underutilized key component of long-term health for women. Um, and I don't know if, well, I do know there's some patriarchal, standards that have kept women from doing it for
Yeah.
a long period of time.
Yeah.
But as information has become much more available, it's become much more common to see women strength training. I I love it so much. And one thing I didn't mention, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to take over your show here,
Yeah, you good.
but the I didn't mention the empowerment aspect
Yeah.
of lifting something that you possibly could not lift before.
Yeah.
It's just so, and I get this phrase a lot from my clients who, as we check in on a weekly basis,
Mm-hmm.
when they hit a personal best or a personal record on some type of lift, they
Mm-hmm.
often comment to me about how empowering it felt to
Yeah.
do that. And that definitely connects directly to confidence levels,
Mm-hmm.
and that's something that maybe we don't discuss often enough because we're so fixated on
Physical.
bikini bodies and
Yeah.
summer body crap like that. um you know but there's a level of empowerment to going into a gym or getting down on your bedroom floor and doing one more push-up than you did before,
Yeah.
and noticing the increasing your strength. um and from my perspective, working with moms, another level of empowerment is seeing how it affects their kids.
Yeah.
You see your 4 year old doing push-ups. You ask her, what are you doing, baby? And she's like, I'm getting strong like mommy.
Mm.
That's a perception of my mother that I was never gifted with. I've never
Yeah.
seen my mother before she passed away. I'd never seen her run or
Yeah.
exercise or be
Mm.
strong. And man, that's a gift that affects generations of your family.
Yeah.
It spills into your entire lineage, which is
Mm-hmm.
why it's so important for me to work with moms, because I
Mm-hmm.
know if I can affect that person as a gatekeeper, it's probably going to have a recurring effect on the a ripple effect on the rest of the family. And
Yeah.
I'll be quiet now.
No, I love that. I love that because of the way you train the ladies, right? You're encouraging, like back to point number one, like make it fun and make it it wasn't you didn't say productive, but you know how you were saying you don't have to spend hours. You can get
Oh,
like if you may have
absolutely.
20 minutes and you can still get so much. So you make
Yes.
it so like when your clients are working out with you, it's not a stressful thing. It's
Right.
engaging, it's fun, it's encouraging, it's inspiring. So I love that because that's what the kids get to see. They don't get this, they don't see, oh, I gotta go work out. They see,
Absolutely.
oh, I get to go work out. And that's an
Normalize it.
important aspect of it too, because you know.
Got to normalize it when we understand on a deeper level investing in
Mhm.
every aspect of the word, whether it's investing financially or investing in ourselves. We come to the point of understanding that any investment will compound in interest except a
Yeah.
zero investment, right?
Yeah.
um so I all I want is to get somebody to put a little bit into that investment. If you have $1, let's put $1 in.
Yeah.
If you happen to have $100 that day, let's invest $100.
Mhm.
But the only way that we do not get compounding interest is if we put zero in. And
Mhm.
oftentimes that's the default. People will think, I don't have 1,000, so I may as well do zero.
Yeah.
And I have clients that I write 10-minute programs for,
Yeah.
right? And they get phenomenal results because it's doable for them,
Yep.
and they can continue to invest, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
you know, versus me having a dogmatic approach and telling everybody that comes to me, regardless of their circumstance, we're going to work out 5 days a week for an hour each day. You know, some people can't meet that investment and they will default to zero
Yeah.
because they think anything else along the spectrum is worthless.
Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah.
that's important.
It is.
And
It
I
is.
promised that I was going to be quiet, but I didn't. You know, told me to be
Yeah.
quiet, and I'd be quiet. But when you stopped, I was talking again. Uh,
It's your passion. It's totally okay. So I do remember what came to mind earlier. The recommendation by whatever, probably fitness standards or whatever, is at least twice a week anyway, right? Like
mhm,
30 for weight training, and the rest would
absolutely.
be cardio. And then the other thing that they recommend. Like if you don't have 30 minutes at one time, you can break it up 10, 10, 10. And so it's like realizing that, because like this morning I only had 15 minutes. I did 15 minutes, so I still got another 15 minutes to do a little later after this call or after my client, my next call. I can do 15 minutes, right? It doesn't feel like it's like this big thing. It's just like, oh, I can 15 minutes, got that.
Yeah.
So just and the other thing that came to mind too is just back to something you said earlier about giving yourself grace. Like if you can only do 15 minutes, yay, I get to do 15 minutes. I can do this. I'm giving myself grace. I'm giving myself permission to enjoy this 15 minutes right here and now. And I will just come back and revisit another 10, 15 minutes later. So, I mean, later in the day or whatever. So, yeah.
Absolutely, man. Grace unlocks the door to change, right?
Mm-hmm.
Criticism rarely does. It's
Yeah.
more criticism is more of a lock than a key.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so yeah, you guys need to, if you're not following the show on a regular basis, I encourage you to listen to Nikki on a regular basis, because she obviously she knows what she's talking about here. We need to get the listenership, the viewership up here,
Thank
Nikki.
you.
I may have underestimated the high quality of this production. I'll never do that again. I'll never do that again.
Thank you. I
That's a
appreciate it.
great point. Great point.
Thank you. Thank you. Awesome. Well, you had some amazing tips today. I love it. I love it. I love it. Tip number one, just a recap for anybody who's like just jumping on, like, oh, should I rewind this? Tip
Yeah.
number one, reduce your stress. Don't add stress to the things that are supposed to be helping you reduce stress, i.e., your workout and your diet. Tip number two, just go ahead and accept where you are. Create a now avatar. The pants that you were fitting into in your 20s, just it's okay to let it go. You're not like it's you accepting and loving yourself for who you are right then and there. And that is so important. And number three, incorporate some type of strength training. And the beautiful points, like it can be your own body weight. It doesn't have to be big, huge dumbbells in the gym. I love the push-ups on the wall. That's less intimidating. That's so doable. So reach out to Ren. He's got a lot of exercises up his sleeve to make it easy, especially if you're just easing into it. So
Come on over.
awesome. Yes, yes. And you'll have fun, because if you haven't tuned in before now, when you watch it again, you'll see he is a big ball of fun. So gotta make it fun.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Very fun.
Yes. Ren, I can't thank you enough. Those are some really, really great tips. And I'm encouraging anyone who catches us live or later, put those things into action. If you have challenges with any of that, reach out to Ren. He's got you. His information is in the description. So Ren, thank you so much for your time. It's been a great conversation.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. Nikki. It's deja vu. Have we not done this before? I got a weird deja vu about this episode. It's crazy. That's just that universal energy again. You know how that energy does.
Yes.
I sincerely appreciate you bringing me to your audience. I don't take that for granted. Anytime another human thinks that I can provide any type of solution for their one shot at humanity in this plane of existence, at least, man, I consider that a privilege, and I don't take it for granted. So thanks so much for having me. And I can't wait to come back. We got to think of another topic so I can come back another time.
Yes, absolutely. I definitely would love to have you back. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Another wonderful Sunday Tips Over Tea. I hope to see you back next week. If you're not already a subscriber, please just do everyone a favor and like, subscribe, share. If you find this content valuable, I really appreciate that. If you need to reach out to Ren, his information's in the description. And until then, I'll see you next time. Ciao. Thanks again for tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe, and click the bell so you'll be notified anytime we upload a new video or go live. And as always, if you have any questions or anything, feel free to post it in the comments. We're always checking that. In the meantime, Have a great rest of your